Anyways, just to finish up that comment before we do the intros here, it's the whole point is that like talking with Scion and setting up the map contest the way we did was, I know for a fact internally Blizzard really wants to give the map makers like a lot more attention, publicity, and emphasize their work, but it's really hard to do that. So this is kind of like the first step, and I'm hoping that Blizzard will continue working to do more with them as time goes on. But anyways, got a new sub apparently at some point during the breaks, Casual Complete. So shout outs and thank you very much, sir. Good old Grim also hit us up with a 12-month resub. And that being said, let's hop into these intros. This is the TING Open Season 2 Wildcard Qualifiers. We're actually one round away from qualifying. The winner of this will go on to fight against Sort of. And that will be a match to determine which of these players goes through. So in the top left, he's only playing PvZ if he continues to win today. It is going to be my Insanity's Drogo.
In the bottom right, as the red Zerg, it is Dead Pixels Namshar.
Yeah, Dead Pixel is kind of absorbing / merging with Carnage Esports earlier this year. Still a bit of an odd thing for me to consider, but Namshar actually been showing pretty good results and surprised a lot of people at DreamHack.
Yeah, he made a good run at DreamHack, which was nice to see. Of course, at the expense of Hearthstone, which was unfortunate to see, as Hearthstone didn't have a good run.
I saw that reaction live too. It was so weird and surreal because Hearthstone, when he was done, you couldn't tell whether he was mad because it was a tough game or mad because he lost. And then Namshar just had his head like buried in his arms. Like it looked like he was upset because he lost, but really he was just so happy he couldn't believe he won.
Yeah. Well, actually, I had another comment about that map contest thing. And the reason I brought up that, like, you know, okay, I don't mean mean, but like, it seems like a lot of these map contests, or these map makers are little, you know, whatever, was because one person in particular swore that his map was the best, his or her map, I don't know, and then kind of like veiled blamed us for Avex getting 3 of his maps. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh no!
Into the top 15, and it's like, yeah, we didn't have any part of it. So
no, we were not judges. This was a really big aspect of it. Like, we had no say in it whatsoever. We were only hosting the contest to follow suit. So whoever that guy is needs to get his head screwed on straight. I mean, we're doing what we can. Like, for those who don't know, like, this, I guess, is a small message directly to the map makers, but mostly for everybody else. It was like back in November of last year, I started trying to do this idea with Scion, and it took so long to actually get going, so it kind of sucks. In the meantime, we tried to use good maps. Like, we had Detox from Avax, ended up being a phenomenal map last season in TING, gave us some great games. Like, if Avax got maps in, it's probably because he makes good maps, not because BaseTradeTV showed favoritism or something.
You'd hope so, right? Well, anyway, so that's the last to say about it until we can actually talk about the maps. More specifically, I suppose, when we actually see them. Because I remember the last map contest was really, it's a lot of fun, you know, even when the maps are screwed up and blind you, like that one. But...
Oh, the Dash and Terminal. Terminal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, either way, I'm really glad because Ting's also given us permission to kind of put some of those maps, if we really like them, into the map pool, even if they won't be part of the ladder, which is awesome. Again, another reason why Ting's really cool to work with. They're really all about just making fun stuff happen. So if we see a map that we really like, we can just put it back in, kind of like what we did with Detox last season. Maybe we just pick like one of Avex's maps again. Why not? Apparently his favorite.
Show that guy.
Okay, gold base is being taken, and this is something where this is, I think, without a doubt in my mind, a bit of a Zerg favored map, especially with the way the gold bases lay out. So my question is, why Drogo? Like, what did he veto over this? Like, what map did he really just not like? Was Orena just that much worse of an option type thing?
Potentially. I would say that a lot of it comes down to, because this is really balanced out. Like, overall, like, the Void is balanced out, even if there are some consistent imbalances, you know, situations that are just, you know, they're pretty hard to deal with for any race. It's pretty balanced. The maps have really been figured out, so Grand Terraces is no longer just like, oh, lol, like, I guess Zerg wins. In fact, I feel like maybe this is, like, confirmation bias, not using, maybe that's not the right word, but that I've seen more Protosses win versus Zerg. I don't know, but... that everything is actually pretty okay. So it always feels like the map veto process is more in tune with who are you playing. And for Arena, I think like it would be scary to play an aggressive player, which I don't necessarily pin Namshar as. So I don't know why that would be vetoed.
Well, the Phoenixes are not quite getting that many kills. The Transfusion on the Overlord was a little bit silly to see, but actually quite nice. Keeps that alive so he doesn't get supply blocked anytime soon. Spore Crawler's up, drones are mining, and this gold base is just kind of humming. Meanwhile, Drogo's is finishing up, and he should be able to get this mining soon. Again, like you bring up the topic of Protoss winning on this map more, and that's actually true. When we start seeing a lot more of the Phoenix/Gateway comprised builds, but Drogo's doing something very odd, where he's open with Phoenix and he's following up with a double Robo. Now, this isn't odd, like, oh my god, we've never seen it before, but it's something that's going to be a lot more gas dependent than mineral dependent, so he won't get too much advantage from the gold bases through it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, generally, we are seeing with this map, actually, this is a bit of an odd scuffle, is that the adept attacks are doing damage and thus allowing Protoss to get more even footing with the accelerated economy that, you know, the Zerg can get from the gold bases. But it's also just a case of, like, everyone's playing a more macro-oriented game. That's what always happens with any new expansion or any new change. It's going to be, like, cheeses and all-ins first and then, like, macro later on, right? So, like, the Protoss are getting easier thirds. So Drogo's is already set up. Namshar's tiny attack, while it hoped to have hit before there was enough, I suppose, it didn't. They both traded pretty evenly, and they're both now on equal bases, with, you know, Namshar just getting his fourth at the regular base setup, which is, you know, pretty normal.
Well, so something Namshar's also doing is he's going into Roaches right now, which, again, against double Robos can be a bad idea, but he hasn't seen the double Robo. But my question to you then, actually, did he see it? Let's confirm that. No, he did actually see it. So my question to you is, what do you think it is going forward? I mean, to me, everything here just screams defensive instead of offensive at this point. Like, why would you build Roaches into a double Robo if you're planning to attack?
Yeah, it's a good point. And I guess it is just, as we watch this unfold, because apparently it's going to be a macro game. No one's killing each other yet. What is Namshar's plan? Obviously, it isn't going for the pure Hydra Ling that we saw from Bly in the last series, which had its, you know, its benefits and its, you know, and its downsides. Or is it going to be like this fast, like, tech? Is it just a, you know, cautionary units and he's going to go up to a hive soon? Or is he going to look for a Roach Hydra attack and then maybe go into lurkers eventually? Because I don't see any other tech on the board right now.
Well, Phoenixes are getting some pretty good kills, but they're also fighting right on top of the Hydra, so it gets a little bit scary, but he does get them out alive. And for Drogo, we continue to harass him, we continue to drive Namshar crazy trying to deal with this. I am a little bit concerned, though, about Namshar's army supply. Like, he's droning up right now again to replace the workers that he lost. That's great, but it's not easy. Like, even if you've got all that larva, I really like the macro hatchery too. But if you're not prepared for Drogo's attack, and it's going to be full of immortals and whatnot, that's going to be bad.
Yeah. Is it just going to be like numbers and concave over what is a good composition coming up for Drogo for Namshar? Because it
feels like that's what he's doing. Like, he's trying to go for the brute force numbers game, which I don't think is going to cut it in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure. We'll see, because I feel like it really is up to the Zerg to do something in the mid game so that the late game Protoss, you know, maxed out on Immortals, Charge Lot, Archon, Storm, doesn't happen easily. Now, early on, it's up to, like, the Protoss doesn't have to die at all ins and all that, right? But then the dynamic really shifts, and I feel like it's already shifted into the favor of Drogo here as he gets this really perfect composition, and Namshar, you know, is going to be attacking into it when it's already prepared for it. You know, lurkers are kind of a non-issue as long as your positioning is correct, and, you know, you're a good Protoss player, which Drogo is, once you have this composition.
Really nice setup of bases too. I like the Namshar's continue to expand. But we got a $5 donation coming from Dominish. Thank you so much. It's really long though, so hang on. Alright, beware people of Twitch. There have been several reports of rogue Dominish wandering around in chat. If you encounter one of them, do not pet or feed them. They are dangerous and will poke you in the butt if you let them out of sight. What? Warp Prism in the main does manage to barely skirt in here alive. I guess the Queens didn't quite finish it off, so Zealots do get warped in. They kill a couple of drones, but truth be told, this isn't really worth the Zealot cost, so I don't know about abandoning those the way he did, but it did draw the army out of position and allowing Drogo to push through the middle of the map a bit, and if he can get more warp-ins with that Warp Prism while this pressure's out in front, he can certainly do a lot of damage. That's a lot of Immortals after all, but that's also a lot of Hydralisks.
It is, yeah, and you gotta take into account, like, how quickly your army will just disappear before your army can actually touch those hydras. It's always like the trick. So definitely save the war prism for reinforcements. That's better than trying to save a couple of harassment zealots. But Drogo's supposed to be careful not to run into what is right now. I'm just mostly worried about the concave he's running into, right? And he's, well, I guess he still wants to take it. Charge lots, Duke on top of those hydras. They're trying to retreat back to the lurkers, which is losing them a lot of their damage.
That observer's almost gone though, and if the observer pops off, there won't be any detection. So Drogo's got to be careful with the way he's sending this forward.
Oh, the Phoenix is coming. They're gonna pick up all those lurkers, and he did push through this. Now all the Archons are dead, but Charge Lots are still being reinforced. The Immortals are still alive, and they're getting their barriers back as well. Yeah. And I think Drogo just won.
A lot of barriers weren't actually even triggered with this, by the way. Like, those Immortals never even got touched through most of the fight. So GG doesn't get called, and Drogo, confirmation bias confirmed, will take game number 1.
Yeah, that was a very odd game in that it was way too simple for Namshar. Like, it's a very odd way to put it, but it was just like, you should have done something a little trickier.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Maybe that early attack of like the roaches threw him off. Like, he really expected more from it or something. I don't know.
Well, what is map 2? I'll load up the intro.
Endion. Ruins of Endion.
Alright. Got it. Okay, cool. As we all frantically click and try and get into this game, let me join on for you. So it looks like on the top half of the bracket, Harsum and Keen are still fighting. Solar waits for the winner of both of those. So I guess Solar actually did turn out to play today. It's sort of down here. I mean, this last time we had, who was it? A Laser and no, was it Laser and Nurcho? I think 2 Zergs for the Europeans.
Yes, it was 2 Zergs.
Okay. Wildcard qualifier might be 2 Zergs too at this rate. I mean, like, I like Harsum and Keen quite a bit, but Solar should be the better player in the top half of the bracket. And if Drogo can beat Namshar, I'm pretty confident Drogo could take on Sorta, but that's a matchup that could go either way.
Race.
Gotcha! Gotcha! I don't know what I said the first time.
Gotcha!
Yeah, Namshar's gotta be Zerg, not Terran. I mean, if he wants to try to play Terran because he hates his race so much, by all means, go ahead, but...
It's like, guys, you ruined my surprise.
Yeah, he wasn't gonna notice, man. Alright, now we can go. Alright, take 2. Ruins of Endion. Ladies and gentlemen, sit tight. We'll be back in just a moment after the intro. Unless it doesn't want to play. Unless Exploit's doing that thing where it's bugged again. Oh, one sec, guys. The wrong side of the maps. There we go. Alright, spawning here in the bottom right side is going to be my Insanity's Red Protoss. Currently have 1-0. It is Drogo.
The bottom left as the blue Zerg, it is Namshar.
Again, like going back to Namshar's recent success at DreamHack Austin, you know, he did take on Harstum, who is, I would rate right up there with Drogo. It's hard to say that like just because you can beat one, you can beat the other, but you brought up a point in that game where you felt it was too simple, and while I didn't think there needed to be Nidus Swarms or tech swaps, you see a double robo and you build roaches. It just, so much of that game didn't make sense to me for what Namshar had planned.
It was too simple. It was, and I guess another word could be old. Maybe a better word than simple. Simple doesn't really explain a lot, but like it's old. Like so it's a max out on Roach Hydra, and maybe he's thinking I can do this because it's pre on terraces, right? It's such an old way of thinking. Like Protosses have gotten a lot better at like, you know, composition wise, build order wise, like pacing wise, getting you to, you know, you're not drone when you really should be, keeping up on a just in general, they're a lot better than they were 6 months ago, where, okay, especially on Preon, you're going to max out and maybe roll over them. So if that was his plan, then it's an old-fashioned ZVP. And it wouldn't surprise me if maybe Namshar is just stuck in a simple old way of playing, because I feel like that was a problem before when we would cast him. We would see, you know, other players of different regions, or the same region, in the same tournament, do X or Y, and then get to Namshar and it'd be like a little bit like older style. Like maybe more solid, because that's what you're practiced with, but it wouldn't be as like, you know, I guess not innovative, that's the word, but just up to date kind of. So that's like a lot of like vague terminology and whatnot, but it's always the impression I guess I've gotten from Namshar. He's always seemed to have heard like something solid over something new, exciting, tricky, maybe another word for it. And that can sometimes be fine. He certainly has improved as a player over the last year, but it also can lose you a best of 3, or it can lose you a qualifier because people will get used to your non-trickery ways.
The most convoluted way to describe it, but yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I know, right? But
So-
we'll see if he can change it up. Maybe that was just the map.
Maybe. I mean, there are some weaknesses players straight up have, and with some of them being a lot more obvious, like we had referenced Orena, but also Creon Terraces, a lot less standard, a lot less hard, or sorry, a lot easier to mess up on them. Drogo's doing something similar to what we saw last time, where he knocks down the rocks really early. He'll probably take that third. We'll probably see the Stargate once again. I mean, this is pretty much the exact same way he played it out versus Bly.
Yeah, this might be a very similar looking game where they both macro up, and hopefully Namshar will be able to fix whatever threw him off in that game. I mean, maybe he was so defensive because he entirely misread the scenario from Drogo, and that's what really threw him off. But if this is going to be a very passive game, it's easy to scout. Like, if the Protoss is the one that break down their own rocks, they're probably not doing a trick build.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it was once Liberty they would be, but not so much in Legacy of the Void, so you should just probably expect a third base.
So since this may be a bit of a slower game, I want to bring up something that, I guess I didn't read the community feedback thread
Oh, God,
this morning,
yeah.
but I saw Wellmu mention something about this earlier today while we were in the general chat, and then Mana tweeting about something just before we got into this game where like he can't help but disagree with how absurd it is. And I looked and I'm like, I feel we're getting to this point where I really actually don't think Kespa has the best opinion on some of this stuff. Like, their players are good, but I feel like if Kespa as a whole is suggesting some of these changes, it just feels a lot more almost balance-whiny than actually like game beneficial.
I agree. It's very odd but I'm torn. On one hand, it's very odd because when you think of Koreans, you usually think of them as unemotional, which is always a bad stigma to have. But then if they're unemotional, then they're usually, you know, highly intelligent, and they're always thinking of the greater good or something. Like, we do put them up on a pedestal a little bit, right?
Oh, not just a little bit, definitely.
Yeah, so there's that, and some do own up to it. Some are really they realize that my race isn't most important, it is the overall thing. But there are equally like these same amounts of complainers. We just don't hear the complaints because we don't speak Korean, and we're not on the same like sites they are. So it's always it's just funny, and I wonder if Kespa's just.
I look at the 3 points, by the way, for those who also haven't read it. War Prism nerf, additional nerf to Liberator in the ground mode, and Larva buff, or Inject buff, excuse me. And all of those are just like Zerg complaints, I feel. And it's funny because Korea's the only region right now where Zerg isn't actually doing incredibly well. Like, we look at Europe, a lot of the time Zerg's doing fine. The win rate's fallen off a bit recently, and I can't speak to statistics, but for the most part, Zerg players are looking fine in every region in the world except Korea. So it's kind of like, I don't know what to say. Like, Scarlet No Regret looked better than most of the Zerg players in Korea as foreigners coming to Korea.
Yeah, isn't that funny? It is a very odd state, but that's, I guess, despite the changes being kind of absurd, and I agree with Mana in that they really are just like, what? I like that they're acknowledging that Kespa isn't the end-all be-all. So these are only ideas, not something they're actually implementing. But I just... The War Prism, I could agree with that. That's Terran bias right there. And just in general, I always thought the War Prism was like... It was too powerful in Legacy of the Void, but it's fine now. The Liberator one, okay, whatever, we can complain about that later. But the Larva one? Like, really?
It was so absurdly broken during the beta. That's why it had to get that nerf. I just feel like... Whatever. Anyways, point is, we find that the game's starting to shape up, and I guess we can talk about this more at another time, or... Rip if there were StarCraft 2 talk shows, we could hear them talk about it. But at any rate, Drogo's just planted down a ton of gateways. Now, while I mentioned he had the same opening is similar to what he did versus Bly, and it is, again, the sentries to the south, like Stalker is going to be accompanying this. We'll see if this ends up being as effective or not, because that game versus Bly did end in a very awkward, almost lose base trade scenario. Like, that wasn't actually that clean of a win.
So there are a couple of, like, for the most part, it's been like this passive macro game with a lot of the same things. What?
Sorry, donation from Dominish. It says, my name is pronounced Jennifer. What?
I think because we mispronounce it all the time. He's just getting to another level or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Jennifer? Jennifer's a pretty girl's name, man. Don't ruin Jennifer.
Wow. Okay, anyway, so this is actually almost the exact same thing we saw from Drogo versus Bly with this push. Unfortunately, the situation is very different. He's not pushing into the Hydras, getting them on ramps and cutting them off with force fields. He's getting counterattacked by them, and he did not expect it at all.
Is the Mothership Core anywhere close by to recall? No, I guess not. So this is going to be really bad. He just loses the third and has to yield it entirely. He pulls the probes back, and he's got a full wall off, but it does feel like we're hitting that base trade territory. And can Namshar actually outrace Drogo? I actually think the answer is no, given the upgrades of what's available. So Drogo blinks in. He's going to be able to force field behind him. The Warp Prism going down is kind of huge. But he's going to be able to put a force field down if he really wants to. He can actually put a stasis trap on top of that to really secure that nothing gets up here. But focusing on the lurker den, going to make sure Namshar can't build any lurkers. That was a big problem for him after all, if you recall that last game, that last series versus Bly. But just starting to take an interesting fight here with the Stalkers. He's kind of lost a lot of his momentum. He goes up to the high ground, uses the force field to his advantage. But without that Warp Prism reinforcing, Drogo's losing out on this fight eventually.
Yeah, and of course everyone's focused on this side of the map, so Drogo has not planted down his third or the fourth he was planning on taking behind this. So this is looking pretty bad as Namshar, sure, he's losing like a couple of units here and there, but he hasn't really lost that much economy. He's still on 4 bases and 72 drones. I think Namshar might have just won with this move since Drogo, again, still does not have a third base.
Yeah, if Drogo had like a Dark Shrine or something to really mix it up behind this might look different, but he is going to reinforce the more Stalkers across the map, and Namshar has been drawn to the absolute edges of the map, so he won't be here necessarily right away to defend against this. The question is, can he get here in time to defend against this?
Yeah. I mean, these Stalkers can buy so much time. So if Drogo was double expanding, I'd be totally in favor of this. But he's not. This really is all in. This is the last units. When they get caught, because they're probably going to get caught sooner or later, it is game over.
Recall this time, actually.
Even
so
if they
time
recall.
Up on the ramp.
Okay, that's kind of cool. Even if he recalls, though, that's just Namshar, like, okay, just go attack him now. Just go.
Yeah, that's very true. Oh, Mothership Core going to go down for no reason.
So much for a recall. This really feels like game over. I mean, +2 Blink Stalkers, and they do have +2, can be controlled so well, especially in combination with Force Fields and Guardian Shield. But of course, we don't have any sentries anymore. Especially with like a Warp Prism reinforcing and helping Blink, you know. But a little bit of missed micro there. We got 2 Stalkers on the bottom side, not doing very much. And Namshar, whenever he corners these Stalkers, it will be pretty damn bad. And once again, in this micro, oh no.
I really like Drogo, but the supply count is just like way too dire. The Blink's on cooldown, so he can't escape over the rocks. Like a couple Stalkers get over. Meanwhile, 5 Stalkers do go over to the top left, trying to catch Namshar off guard. I mean, these can one-shot drones if focus fired, but the Hydra's already here to respond. Base at the third under attack, and these Stalkers actually might just hold the location. So he's going to defend this third, which is okay, but he's been behind for so long. He gets his third as Namshar finishes his 5th.
Yeah, good point. Takes like a decent trade for the army Namshar threw over there, but of course he needed a much better trade. He did end up losing quite a few Stalkers as well, and Namshar's rest of his army is just going to collapse on him soon. He's actually almost quadrupling the army supply of Drogo.
So someone's trying to make the argument in chat by the Zombie Grub is a pretty girl's name, and I guess it depends where you put the inflection for the English on that one. Because the name Zombie Grub objectively is not a pretty name. Can it be a name for a pretty girl? Absolutely. But the name itself would not be a pretty name.
I don't think Jennifer is a very pretty name. That was going to be my name.
Jennifer Aniston?
She's pretty, but I still don't think Jennifer's a pretty name.
Actually, so this is going to get like really awkward if this one person in the universe is tuning in. One of my first, like, okay, so we've all done this before, right? You play games online. When you're young, you kind of get like a crush on like whatever some girl is, right? Whether it's a guy pretending to be a girl or a girl, whatever. But there's an actual girl. I can't remember the name of the game. It was like Nexus TK or something. It's from so long ago. But anyways, my first like online crush or whatever you want to call it was a girl named Jennifer, and her online name was spelt like Jennifer or something weird like that. So maybe that's why I think it's a pretty name. But we're going to go to Invader next for Game 3. I will actually need to take just a moment while we get this sorted, guys. So just quick 2 minutes ads. Nothing long. We'll see you soon for Invader as the final map in this best of 3. All right, we're back. We're loading in. Somebody's computer is bracket poo bracket.
Shut up. It's parentheses.
Sorry, parentheses poo parentheses. All right, things are tied up 1-1. Colors a little bit similar, but they're different races, so hopefully you guys can differentiate between the two. It is game number 3, though. Winner of this moves on to the qualifying round, so you don't want to lose this just yet. In the top left side of Invader, we've got My Insanity's Blue Protoss, Drogo.
The bottom left, as the Teal Zerg, it is Namshar.
All right, so I think it was Drogo was mentioning something interesting in the lobby about the pylon at the third needs the map needs to be changed slightly so it can reach better. And I guess I never really considered that, but I wonder how big of a difference that would have made in that game though, because Namshar just kind of stormed in with a lot of Hydras.
Yeah, and they broke them the rocks pretty quickly. So specifically, he was saying that it should be a fast warp in, I assume by touching the Nexus, as well as able to see the rocks being broken down, which is fair. But then he kind of made a joke about, like, you know, literally unplayable. Like, yeah, I think he acknowledged it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it would be very helpful.
I don't want to touch too much on the community discussion stuff we were talking about before, but there's a lot of quality of life things that would be nice if Blizzard addressed those, I think, instead of trying to balance the game for like maybe 2 months. Things like the assimilators having a ton of health, the vision parts on certain maps, the watchtower positions here and there. Like, there's a ton of little things in the game that really are not good for the game. And we just kind of go with it because we say, well, it's been like it, who cares? But again, for what reason nowadays, without Reapers doing stupid grenade attacks, does an assimilator have almost double the health of every other extractor / refinery, right? Like,
yeah.
It's just one of many, many examples. And what I'm personally a little bit peeved about with this is not only could it certainly improve the game quality, I think for some minor effect, it was something that I brought up at the summit to David Kim directly, and I'm really sad that, like, even though we all discussed it, nothing has been done about it.
It really is on the back burner. There's so many things, though. Like, there's a lot of inconsistencies in both the UI of StarCraft, like, you know, out of game and in game, and then all the maps have little tweaks. I mean, we just saw
like Control R.
Yeah, Control R. I was actually gonna bring up the spot where the Overlord was stuck in that Bly versus Drogo game.
Yes, that's another big thing. It was only this seasons of maps too that have had these dumb, weird pillars that screw Sky. There's a GIF actually out there. I guess it's probably a video, but there's a GIF of Morrow getting completely screwed in the middle of Arena with a warp prism on the spire. Not the Zerg spire, but like the spiky thing that comes out of the ground. But point is, like, it just sucks that things like that would slip through.
Yeah. So this is actually an interesting game. So I know we spent a lot of time talking about other things because last game was pretty passive. There's Ruins of Ennion, the rocks broken down, but Drogo goes for the double gateway at the front. So if Namshar's only scouting was trying to get links through, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just assumes it's a Nexus or an Overlord doesn't get sent over there or whatnot. So this is a little bit of a surprise. It already kills 3 drones. I guess Namshar did take this base as the outlying bases as natural, which means a little bit easier for the Adepts to start their attack a little bit earlier. And it looks like they're still going to be able to do a little bit more damage. Okay, they don't commit. But still, this is followed up by a very quick Stargate off of one base. You only just be on the Nexus.
They've already killed a ton of drones, too. I mean, I say a ton is fine, but like early game, that is a lot.
Yeah, I definitely would say so. Now, this is at the expense of a Nexus, right? Like, this Nexus pretty damn late when you consider that a lot of people try and get Nexus before 7 X core. But this Oracle does like 6 more drone damage. That's probably worth it.
Yeah. I guess there's not really a lot. Just look at the bases. Not really Sport Colors and Queens. Roach Horns on the way for Namshar. This is a pretty important Oracle, and not just because like maybe this does some damage and the game like advances one way or the other, but if Drogo gets really far ahead off of that could just be the series all over right now with this. You could focus the Queen first, might just go for the drones. I think going straight for the drones is better though. You can always get about 8 or so drones if done correctly. 7 usually on average, but only 4, and he has to pull away.
Yeah. You know, Namshar did bother to pull his drones, which helped. The Queen was in position automatically, which definitely helps. And this worked out pretty well for Drogo. Not devastating, but pretty well. A quick note, actually, since this is going into now a macro game, as we don't have Namshar really able to counterattack with the wall up, and of course, third Nexus not going down anytime soon, is that last game, you know, it kind of got hectic. We talked a lot about other things because it was so passive, but Namshar's overall composition, build, flow, whatever you want to call it, was a lot better last game. And that, I think, definitely contributed to his win. You know, he didn't waste, quote unquote, waste money on roaches that he didn't need. Now I think he's going to go for a similar attack to that Preon Terraces, which if it goes poorly, we saw how that game went. It went very bad for Namshar after that.
That Oracle gets out alive too, which is really nice. It's actually going to get home. Second one might fight in some trouble with the Spore Crawler here. No, it's going to get out. Should get out.
Ooh, Jesus.
Okay,
wow.
they're both almost dead, but the thing is, they're going to be now used probably more for revelations and stasis traps than anything else for the rest of the game. Last game, it's worth noting that Drogo lost both of them pretty early with that attack, so he didn't have that option going forward. The Void Ray is going to be a nice addition onto what's already available, but for the most part, like, Drogo, he's done a great job keeping Namshar's drone count down, but can he actually play well off of this? Because he did, you know, again, the Nexus was just so late.
So this attack feels very much so like the first game, and that attack was deflected kind of easily. It didn't stop the third Nexus. It didn't kill any probes. This game, there is no third Nexus, so it does look a little useless, but in one way it's already better. You know, Drogo has not gotten away with his own bit of greed, although he is going to now. So it does, you know, now my question is basically, will it go better than that Preon Terraces game, where Namshar, he kind of got stalled. Like, he did the attack, it didn't work, and then he went for, like, his 4 bases, his macro was fine, but then he got stalled on a very, like, inferior composition. I think, you know, that's the thing that they look for, improvement when it comes to Namshar's game here. Oh, that last-minute larva inject.
Totally worth.
Yep.
Because otherwise, they wouldn't have enough larvae since they don't have 4 per inject.
Shut up. Wow. That's going to be shots fired for some time.
Well, double Robos coming down again out of Drogo are not so surprising to me. I mean, we're definitely going to see him go for Immortals, let's be honest. That's just Protoss in a nutshell right now. But this is something where I really like the positioning better for this. Whereas on Runes of Endion or any other map, like, your third really is in a bit of an odd spot. This is on the way to attacking, so you're already rallying to your front lines, as well as the base you're going to be defending either way.
Oh, this is a bit of a scary attack, just because the sentries and the force fields could add so much. There are a few positions, ramps, chokes that can be abused, especially if they allow you to get too far forward. Already letting Drogo on top of the ramp, it kind of sucks for Namshar, and he's just going to have to let go of his hatchery.
Man, these force fields reminding me a little bit of Overgrowth right now, but yeah, the hatchery is going to go down, but is this going to be valuable? He can always recall out of this, he always drop a Time Warp if he really gets scared. I mean, he doesn't really have the force fields to continue doing this. Does manage to lock off the ramp for a bit. Looks like he wants to kill one more base before going back home.
This is a very nice attack, and unfortunately Namshar, despite having roaches for that very small little push, didn't have roaches for the defense. I think he was still waiting on Hydras. He was hoping to get, like, you know, like 10 or so at a time because he was banking so many minerals, and at the time a lot of gas, but just a little bit too late, and he loses 2 bases for it. 1.5.
Bracket update, by the way. It looks like Hearthstone did in fact lose to Keen. A little bit sad to see over there, but so it'll be Keen versus Solar in the first semifinals match after this.
Ooh, Koreans taking our gerbs.
Yeah, it's actually, I feel bad because of the time at which they'll have to wait to play, but we'll probably cast their semifinals first, I guess. Best of 3 over on Korea after this.
In
the meantime, the Immortals, again, here's that production we were talking about. They don't really need a lot of upgrades initially, because Immortals, I think, nowadays are a lot more, like, they've got just innately a ton of damage. It's 50 a shot versus things like Roaches, armored units. So it's that tankiness that they really bring to the party that makes them so, so nice.
Thanks to Rage Kitty for the 413 sub.
Yeah, and I don't know if we shouted him out to Humanizer as well. Thank you so much. Getting back into this. Still terrible at it.
Well, okay, so Roach Hydra, once again, composition here, against what is slowly becoming a very, very high immortal count. Now, it's not the perfect composition yet, because there's a couple of stalkers that feel a little bit useless, and charge isn't done yet, and it's only 4 immortals, like, quote-unquote, right? But it's getting there, and Namshar, you know, he got stuck on this Roach Hydra thing first game, and it's kind of happening again here. Like, where's the Infestation Pit? Where's the Spire that Bly chose to go for? Bly's a little interesting, so I definitely expect an Infestation Pit. But even so, where's the Lurker Den? No Lurkers. Just Roach Hydra.
That was a pretty nice Curse of Battle hit, by the way. It triggered a couple of barriers and did catch some of that Immortal Shield, but Drogo's army should be better in every regard coming into this. Like, Namshar really, it is so Roach dependent, but Drogo's really hesitant to take a fight. In fact, really abandoning 2 Immortals there, temporarily backing in, backing out. I think he can just really push to win through these Hydras. This doesn't look that bad.
Yeah, I think so. Especially with a
charge lots on the other side.
Charge lots.
Oh, there's a lot of them too. Goes to Biolands once again, and that Void Ray's almost dead, but there's those charge lots unleashing themselves on top of the Hydras, now stuck off of Creep, coming for the backside. The Immortals are going to hold on to this. Time Warp not even being used. Mothership Core might be contemplating a recall, but either way, he's not going to need it. Base falls, and Drogo loses almost no army for this. Most of what he trades out are Zealots. Not a single Immortal's actually died yet.
Yep. Pretty similar to that first game. Of course, in this one, Namshar took early game damage. He lost out on a 3rd base and a building 4th. He was in a bad position. But again, there's also the composition was just not set up to deal with Drogo. So, well played, ZVP. Namshar will go down.
Well, hopefully Drogo can keep it together for one more, because he will move on to fight against Sort of next in a qualifying match. Now, unfortunately, we will not be casting that one first. We will be moving over to Korea to catch the Koreans. I have actually the map vetoes. I'll paste them to you on Skype, so we can just hop over there and get them sorted ASAP.
Oh, okie dokie.
We do care first, then coming back. Alright, so guys, we're going to play a commercial from TING. We'll go for Kyra's tips. You know, we were talking about internet crushes earlier. Let me tell you guys about Kyra from TING, am I right? So we'll get this set up and loaded, and then we'll see you guys in a few minutes as we swap over to Korea and get Keen versus Solar ready to play.